Alright, welcome back to Universe X. Today, we're going to talk about something else. It's not going to be quite about Vicious Rejuvenation quite yet, even though it's right around the corner, but it's going to be something I think is pretty relevant because it's going to end on Vicious Rejuvenation. I'm thinking this is going to be a two-parter video, kind of, and we're going to be able to get into some deep discussion. So as the title may insinuate, this is going to be a video or two about SCRs, kind of how they started, where they are, how they got there, and some trends and where they can go from here. So right before we get into the main thing, I just want to say that we are getting closer and closer to 500. I've been saying this for a couple times now. And so pretty much, if you are digging the content, think about hitting that subscribe button, and every subscriber counts. For real, it matters. And then after we hit 500, we're gonna move directly into the road to 1,000, because we're trying to get out here on that monetization, you know what I mean, doing stuff for funds while actually making a little back from it, hopefully one day, if the content keeps doing well. On the horizon, since the pre-releases this weekend, I will be having some giveaways. I've decided that I'm going to open up a box or two, we're gonna see on camera, and minus one card in the set, because I actually do need this one card to play my deck. I'll be giving away any foil card that I pull on camera. I'll be getting names. I'll have another video where you guys can join the contest and the giveaway, and I'll just be giving those out. Past that, look forward to a giveaway with Spiral Maui graphics. We're still working that out with these metal leaders. And then last but not least, the Facebook group will be in the description along with my Discord link. So without further ado, let's get right into this stuff. A secret rare, just in case you're new to the game watching this video, is a just one-of-a-kind card. They're the hardest cards to pull in the set. There used to be one per set, then they started doing every now and then two, then went back to one. Now we're on this 3 per set kind of game. And the cool thing about them is that they're so powerful depending on which set you're in, that they all have the ability keyword ultimate, meaning you can only include one card with the keyword ultimate in your deck. If you have two cards with ultimate in your deck, you're cheating, and hopefully you never catch that deck check. So let's it's pretty cool, because when it first was released, we were told it was going to be a massively powerful card. Now all secret rares seem to not only have ultimate, but also start with 40,000 power. Now there's going to be, maybe an exception or two on the list, but it's pretty cool. Now, the foiling, generally different. Like, they hit different. They literally look cooler. But the cool thing was, with a card that you could only include one of in your deck, you'd have to assume that the power level is off the charts. But you also have to consider what makes a healthy one of. Because if the one-of just ends the game the moment it comes down, I'm not saying that they have not printed secret rares that do that, because we will get to that. But you're going to start unbalancing the game, because if these secret rares can only be played in a couple decks and they impact the game that heavy, you inherently give certain decks the ability to top deck game. And that doesn't make it fair for other decks. But if you make it too mid, what's the point of hunting these secret rares outside of collecting them if they don't really do anything? So let's just start. The very first secret rare that we got was Ultimate Force Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta. And I'm not going to go into every effect, because we could talk for hours about their effects, how they impact the meta, what they do. But I'm just going to kind of go into some more general stuff. You guys can see the card, okay? You'll notice this is a 10 cost blue card. And it's got what? Triple specified blue, 10 cost. At this point in the game, even though the game was slower, this was unheard of actually getting out. There are two decks that could effectively get it out, or an archetype in the deck. So I mean, you could ramp with blue and get this, or because of the color replacement properties of the original set 2 Red Vegeta, you could actually play this card for 5 red. Now, this dude, you gotta look at him, alright? He's triple attack, triple strike, 40k. If this guy ever landed against you, chances are you were dead. Now, there were some outs that could smoke him upon swing, especially once we get to set 3. But when he came out in set 2, if you ever had the misfortune of having this guy land against you, you were probably dead that turn. Like, you're about to burn all your negates, and then you need to remove him next turn or you're going to die. But as you can see, he's incredibly limited. Blue ramp decks, or Vegeta in red. And red wasn't that good at surviving back then. So getting the 5 energy alone back then was a hard thing for red to do in the face of the current of the decks. Moving to the very next card, you've got Hyper Evolution Super Saiyan 4 Son Goku. Now this card had EX Evolve, place 2 cards from your hand to the drop, and you can put him on a red Son Goku GT with energy cost of 6 or more. This was definitely harder to do in terms of availability. Well, sorry, easy to do in terms of the combo, but less decks that could do it. This was only red decks, okay? Red decks that could house it. And then on top of that, I guess if you were playing something a little later, you know, you could use Super Saiyan 3 Goku in a predominantly red deck. But the thing is, you have to evolve on a Son Goku with specific cost or higher. Son Goku GT. So this is very, very limited. But his effect was actually very, very, very crazy because this guy is able to keep standing himself and keep swinging. And depending on how it works, if you can boost his attack, which there were many ways to do that back then, there are specific combos, you could burn somebody for the rest of their life. This card was actually really, really crazy combo oriented, but it can only be used in one deck. So far you have 2 sets in a row where the secret rare, for all intents and purposes, was very, very, very inaccessible and didn't actually, like, yes, you could, for the most part, with Vegito, you could push game, but 3 negates and you had to wait till next turn to push game. Then you have Hyper Evolution Super Saiyan 4 Son Goku, who could, again, push game very hard. Now, he was a little more immune to 3 negates because, you know, you have this guy with enough attack, and even if they negate you 3 times, they're taking 3 damage. So this is actually really, 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 really nutty. But at the same time, he wasn't for surefire game. If your opponent somehow was stalling you or used results of training to awaken before they hit 5 or 4 life, this could still not necessarily be game if they have enough negates, and could be smoked because barrier wasn't a thing really. So we're still kind of in the territory of cards that were the hardest card to pull in the set, very inaccessible in terms of what decks could use them, and unfortunately not backbreaking. Well, backbreaking when they resolved, but yes, very inaccessible. So next we're going to move over to the, in my opinion, first secret rare that just completely polarized how we viewed secret rares, and that's Son Goku the Awakened Power. EX Evolve for 1, he goes on a Son Goku, or Universe 7, you have to put 1 Universe 7 from your hand and pay 1 energy to put him on top of a Universe 7 Son Goku with energy cost of 6 or more. There's a couple of things this guy could evolve onto, but at the very beginning, he was evolving onto the green Son Goku from that set. Now this guy came with a brand new keyword called Victory Strike, and it says if this guy deals a damage, it is game ending. Doesn't matter if you have 8 life. Doesn't matter if somehow you could rack your way up to 16 life. Impossible. But if you could, this guy would still be game if he just touched you once. Now, he had a permanent saying this card's attack and skill cannot be negated. That means that he cannot be bloodlusted. And that means that he could not be negated. You can't Whisk Portion him. You can't Vados Assistance him. So the only thing you were really doing was hitting this man with a Crusher Ball, you know, or you were blocking him. So while this guy was still fairly limited in terms of accessibility, most of the decks from that set could play him. You could play him in a green Universe 7 deck with the green Goku leader. You could play him in the Gohan deck. You could play him with a Vegeta leader. You could play him with a Frieza leader. And the thing is though, Universe 7 with Frieza leader was probably the best one to do because it had so much defense from yellow back in the day, the ability to use Bloodlust to cut off your opponent's plays, and when you were finally ready to kill them and make sure that they don't have blockers, they don't have this and that, you literally were able to go up his chain, pump him to high heaven, and then swing with like a base 85k Son Goku, and then pile your entire hand behind them. And since your opponent can't negate, you just have to make sure they don't have blockers. And this guy was just going through for just uber game. So, and if you had open energy up, even when things like Shugash Explosive Spirit Son Goku, you can just blind Bloodlust the Shugash and they have to have another one. So this was the first leader, or sorry, first SCR that really made you feel like he was worthy of the title, in my opinion. You pulled him, you knew you pulled bank, or you pulled your game-winning card. He hits the table, and 9 times out of 10, you're pulling the game away from your opponent. So this was the first time, and granted, it was still very limited in which decks could play it. However, again, he was worthy of having a singleton in your deck. He just felt that strong. Now, the next one we got in the next set, set 3, we actually got set 4, we got 2 SCRs. And it's really weird because they are night and day in terms of how they're used and the playability and the accessibility. It really was night and day. So here's where we're at right now. We've got Distant Descendants Son Goku Jr., okay? Ultimate, he has Triple Strike. He is an 8-drop Goku's lineage, and he is the top end outside of Height of Mastery. But the thing is, when you attack, you look at the top 7 cards, you look at you choose any amount of Goku's lineage from them and combo with them, then shuffle the deck. And if 5 of those have different card names, you can choose up to 2 of your opponent's life and place them in their drop area. Okay. So when you have things like this, you're forced to be running more and more cards that could fit their archetype. Okay. But when you are, per se, I don't know, at a point in the game where you can pay 4 or 5 to swap to an 8-drop, and then you're supposed to have 5 different names on the top of your deck when you've probably been thinning and drawing, and this card was counterintuitive to its own existence, and its best quality is that there's a Gohan in the background art, because that's my dude. But basically, this is a prime example of a card that can only be used in a single deck, and it didn't even spell game when it came down. Like, there were SRs and SPRs in the set that did more work than this card. So yeah, it kind of sucked. But in the same exact set, we got Beyond Darkness Demigra. Okay. It's not even close how different these cards were in the same set. This is the first SCR since Awakened Power Son Goku that felt like a boss monster. He's got Triple Strike, he's at 40k, and when he swings, you get to look at your opponent's hand, choose up to 4 battle cards from it, and combo with them in your combo area. Now, the thing about this is, a lot of decks were very, very similar at the time. You had a lot of blue decks. You had a couple of greens, like you had some red. Like, chances are, when you were hitting with Demigra, you were pulling gas from your opponent's hand. And the other thing is, in that time in the format, most players were playing Unbreakable Super Saiyan Goku. If you weren't around when that was being played, it is a 1k cost, or say 1 cost 10k combo card that draws you a card when you combo with it. So there are times where you could swing with Demigra and rip 2 to 3 of these out of your opponent's hand, plus maybe a play from their hand, and draw 3 cards when you're swinging with this absolute monster and give them 70k power. It's just, it's stupid. We'll get them up to 70k. It was very, very stupid. And the thing about this is, I feel like this is a great way to print a card that's a SCR, because any deck can use this. Any deck can actually, well, he's Dark Overwhelm 7. So lots of decks, because you were splashing certain cards in black, could use them. But this was able, you can splash a bunch of black cards and just get this dude onto the field. If you were my friend Zach Egner, he was playing Shinron and he shoved Demigra right into Shinron, because if you don't want to ultimate, if it's not safe, you could still use Beyond Darkness Demigra, remove all 7 Dragon Balls, and that is your Dark Overwhelm 7, and you just shoot it out. So shout out to my homie. But that was a good example. You move on to the next set. It was a theme booster. You've got Son Goku and Oob, Seeds of the Future. This is a very, very limited card. You can only use it in World Tournament decks. So it's kind of very, very limited. But it did do a lot when it comes down. However, your opponent having to have 6 or more cards, it says if there are 6 or more cards in both your energy area and your opponent's energy area, it decreases card's energy cost by 2. So already you have to be late in the game to play this card, and that makes it already a step down from other things. It's inaccessible. You have to be at a certain stage of the game to use it correctly, at all actually, and it has a high cost if not. So I'm gonna skip over it. It's like, you can see like the power level is just, it's never consistent with the SCRs. Next we got Miraculous Fighter, Super Saiyan 3 Gogeta. EX Evolve on top of a blue Gogeta with 7 cost or more. There's only one in the game at that point. Right now there's only one because they banned the first one. Critical Union Fusion, it costs 6 to do. And if you want to Union Fuse it, or you can EX Evolve on the 7 drop, which costs 5 to cheat out. You have at Ultimate, you've got Deflect, and Sparking, you can put a Goku and Vegeta back in. He untaps. 40k. This is very convoluted to use. Very hard to get out in the format that it was released in, because chances are you were getting burnt by Shinron the turn before this guy would have hit the field. And it just wasn't it, man. Like, it was not it. And it could have only been used by one real deck at the time. I mean, I guess any blue deck that had enough Gogetas, you could use it in, but it was kind of weird because lots of the other decks just, you wouldn't fit this into Shinron. You just wouldn't. You won't run enough Gokus and Vegetas. So this is another card that's super specific, hard to pull, and doesn't really push game when it comes out. And I feel like that's counterintuitive for a secret rare. You don't want to make it too broken, because then you'll get what we have now, but you also don't want to make it so bad that it becomes just a novelty in the same set it's released. The next card you have, next theme booster, I think Clash of Fate. It was Frieza, Army Reborn. Quadruple strike on a 40k ultimate, and it comes out for 5 straight red. Once again, it's kind of weird because this is not that hard, actually, this is one of the more lax summoning restrictions. As long as you have 5 red energy, you can play this dude. And, you know, if your life is at 2 or less, you can play him for 5. But this is kind of rough because 8 energy is rough for any deck to really play. 8 energy for a red deck is darn near impossible. So this is already saying you need to be at 2 life or less. So you need to be at a red deck, which was arguably the worst defensive deck in the game at the point. And you also have to be at 2 or less life. To stay at that life as a red deck, especially in a game where Champa exists, very hard to pull this off. You have to be at like 3 life and then take a life from yourself to trigger this guy, and then you need to win that turn because otherwise you're going to die. But he does rip a card from your opponent's hand and then blows up all their field. So you at least get to hopefully stop a play from next turn, as well as eliminating their board from clapping you back if you fail to kill them. This is a very nice card, I think, but once again, it's the hardest card to pull in the set, and you have to be jumping through hoops to play it. So it's, again, we're over here back down the slope of cards that don't really do enough. Now you've got Broly, Ultimate Agent of Destruction. Double strike, dual attack, ultimate. And this guy says one of your green battle cards with an energy cost of 7 or more is removed from the battle area by a skill or KO'd, activate this skill. You can choose all cards other than this card in your hand, place them in your drop area if you do play this card from your hand. When this card attacks, if your life is at 1, your opponent chooses all the cards in their hand and place them in the drop area. Okay. So this is very interesting because the way this guy is set up, he could be used in many green decks. You just have to have the right cost cards and the right triggering effects. So yes, this guy actually, I give it an A+ for longevity. He can be played 8 sets from now. We don't know how good he's going to be, but he definitely played 8 sets from now. He's dual attack, double strike, 40k, so already he can push game hard. But if you use him in a critical moment, or you play him and you drop your life down to 1, he will wreck somebody's hand. So I personally do feel like this card is built different. Any green deck can use this card as long as they have a 7 drop. And I think that this card is, I think this card is how a secret rare should be built. It's a good pinch hitter. It can push really well in neutral settings, even when you're ahead or it's close, but he's best in pinch situations. And he can be played by any green deck. I like this because it allows you to hold value on him. He could come back in 2 sets. We just need the right cards and the right housing for him. Next in the same set, you've got Arcane Absorption Majin Buu. Triple strike, ultimate. All you need to say is 6, choose 1 Evil Wizard Bobby card in your drop area, warp. Okay, we're out of here. You need to start playing specific cards that only work with specific other cards to make this guy good. And so already what we're looking at is, unfortunately, another secret rare that's very hard to pull. Doesn't really work for any deck except maybe 1, maybe 2. And what's worse about it is that he's in the same set as a very good one. So you're either pulling a card that can be splashed, or you're pulling a card that may hold little to no value moving forward. Next, we got SS3 Scramble, Raditz, Vegeta, and Broly. Very good effect. Arrival, strong arrival, 4/5, but still strong arrival. And he's able to just do things when he comes out. I mean, he comes out and like you get to ping yourself a life, crit yourself a life to deal 2 damage to your opponent. He can close a game out by himself if your opponent's at 2 life, and that's not to be discredited. So yeah, I kind of like this. And because it's so easy to put out, because it's just 3 red, 2 green, any red-green hybrid in the future will be able to play this card. If you ever feel like there's a moment, now he doesn't have deflects, that makes it kind of scary, but if you ever feel like you have a moment to slip this card in effectively, it works. We could just start getting back to 7-turn games, and this card could potentially do work again. So as long as you're not facing blue. So I really do kind of like this. This is another card where I feel like as a secret rare, it's built well. Moving on to Power Katara, Vegeta, Kefla, and Zamasu. You've got Triple Strike, Ultimate, Energy Exhaust, permanent. If your opponent has 6 or more energy, or has 6 or more cards in rest mode, reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand by 3, making it a 5 cost, same as its other counterpart. And when you play this card, choose 4 to your opponent's cards, switch in the rest mode, then draw 4 cards. Now, this card kind of, in the same set, I feel like hurts. Now, I wasn't necessarily around when this card gets played, but you can see that the other one can literally close out a game or push your opponent into chomper range just by resolving. This thing comes out on the board for 5 energy and doesn't close game. Like, you switch 4 of your opponent's cards to rest mode and then draw 4 cards. Now, what this is going to do is allow you to put things like energy into tap, blockers into tap, and then you draw 4 cards, but it doesn't ignore barrier. So a barrier blocker still gets in front of this guy. God knows there's barrier blockers with revenge now. We got one coming up in this set. And then you're gonna draw 4 cards for more fuel, but this is after sparking negates, so you can still get stopped pretty hard. You got Baby Janemba next set, Corrupt Coalescence. This guy has activate main to cheat him out for 5 energy, and says your opponent may, well, while he's on the field, your opponent may choose 3 cards in their life and place them to the drop area. If they do, place this card from your hand into your drop area. Otherwise, play this card and from your hand, choose up to 1 of your opponent's leader cards, and it gets minus 30,000 power after turn. So that's offering. This is a punishing effect, and when there's a punishing effect, your opponent's always going to choose the best effect. If your opponent's at 7 life, why not just let me crit myself 3 times and awaken, and you put this card in the graveyard? If I'm in danger of dying, I'm going to let you play this card and put my leader to 0 and let my combo power and my negates hopefully do enough work. It's a punishing effect. You can only run 1 in your deck, and it's a card that you have to pay 5 energy to give your opponent a choice. No. Absolutely not. In the same set, however, you have SS4 Vegeta, Peak of Primitive Power. He's got Arrival for 5, and when you play this card, choose 1. If it's your opponent's turn, gain Double Strike, Critical, or Triple Attack for the duration of the turn. Oh, sorry, all 3 of those, Double Strike, Critical, and Triple Attack. That's wild. 3 swings of Double Strike crit at 4,000. Crazy. If it's your opponent's turn, choose 1 of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, place it in the owner's drop area, then add up to 2 cards from the top of your deck to your energy. Monstrous. Now, the great part about this is, once again, it hits all the boxes I love. Splashable. It's not strictly limited to a single archetype, meaning you can play it in any blue-green deck in the future if the need arises. This is what a secret rare, in my opinion, should look like. It is powerful, it can close out game, and it can be played for sets to come. It's not just a flash in the pot, it's not limited. Next, we're gonna go to the Dragon Ball's Negative Energy Overflow. Same set. This guy is just ultimate. He can be played for 1 less for each battle card in your drop area. And at the end of the turn, when you play this card, choose all battle cards ignoring barrier and place them in their drop area. So it's a dark hole. It's a board wipe. And that's pretty cool. I think the game could definitely use it. The fact that it ignores berry is cool, and I think control decks, while Baby Hatch is better, if you're not playing a blue deck, this is a really good control secret rare in my opinion. So I definitely like Dragon Ball's Negative Energy Overflow. Like I said, it's splashable, any deck can use it, and it retains value. Not too broken, because you can't play it on turn 2 for nothing. But on turn 5 or 6, yeah, it can come in really handy. On turn 4, it can come in really handy. Next, you've got one of the more powerful ones. Now, I'm going to say right here, set 9 was built different. I think they just got tired of secret rares that don't do anything, and they decided to just beat the bricks off of the power level when it comes to secret rares. So you've got Black Smoke Dragon, Eternal Evil, Ultimate, Permanent. Yeah, look, this guy is going to be able to drop his cost by 5. If you have 12 or more cards in your drop area, not hard. So you're going to be able to play this guy for 5. Great top end card. Activate main, he can choose all your opponent's battle cards ignoring barrier and send them to the owner's warps. That's the Dark Star Dragon Balls with oomph on it. On top of that, he can send the top 7 cards of your opponent's deck to their warp, and you draw 2 cards. And then you can also choose 4 cards in your opponent's hand and send them to warp. This guy is a monster. He's black. He can be played in any deck. There's no specifications on him like that. So this is a guy that comes out. This is a guy that if you pull him, you'd want to keep him because he can be played in so many decks in the future. This is what a secret rare should look like. And it doesn't stop in this set. Next, we've got Son Goku and Vegeta, Apex of Power. Now, Ultimate, Victory Strike, Energy Exhaust, Invoker. If your leader card is a Universe 7 card and you have 5 or more red, blue, multicolor extra cards in your drop area, negate the skills of your opponent's non-extra cards in all areas until the end of your opponent's next turn, and then play this card from your hand. Look, and he's at 45k because they just need to put anything with Ultra Instinct at 45k. Here's what you need to take away from this. This hits so many boxes. This is a game ender. This guy comes on board and you are fighting for your life if you don't die that turn. However, he is specific to a deck. The only 2 cards with Victory Strike need Universe 7 cards to work with them, and that's a thing. However, this is also what a secret rare should feel like. When you pull this card and you slot it into your Invoker deck, you should feel like, yes, if I play this card, I'm probably going to win. And this is the art, the feel, this is the hype you want to generate with your secret rare. Flat and simple. And now you've got one of the biggest culprits in the game. Xeno. He is quadruple strike with deflect. He is cheated out by killing 12 costs worth of things on your board to play him, and he will end a game off the rip. If you have a deck that spans the field and you deal your opponent 4 damage, 5 damage, and then summon this dude and swing while they only have 3, 2 energy, and maybe they're all tapped, that's game, okay? It's just game. And the thing is, he's not even just good early game, because when you have 5 or more energy and you play him, he's able to gain dual attack and you warp 3 cards from your opponent's hand. Sorry, you drop them. But this is the definition of an overtuned secret rare, because this guy can be played, like, yes, it's good that he can be played in any green or yellow or green-yellow multicolored deck, okay? I mean, frankly, if your deck is green-red, if you have enough green components, you can play this guy. As long as you have enough green or yellow in your deck, you can play this dude, yes. But at the same time, for a card that can be free as crap, there is no mana or energy usage in this. You just have to have the board that you already turned sideways to beat your opponent with. You can throw it into the drop zone to play this guy, and he instantaneously threatens game from half life. A life total that most of us will race to or eventually end up at just to awaken, and he will end game from there. And what if your opponent can't use him early game? Guess what? He's deadlier late game because he can swing twice. This guy still has a massive price tag because he's busted, and he will stay busted for the rest of the game. Like, the only way you can make him not busted is by making sure the archetype can't use him, like Pureless, because they go from field to warp and they can't meet successor's conditions. So this guy is so good, and he fits all the boxes that I said make a good SCR, but he's too tuned. He's over-tuned. He threatens game the day he comes down. He can't be interacted with by counter plays because of deflect, and he gets better if you play him late game. Over-tuned. Now, next we're gonna go into this. I think after set 9, they were a little afraid to make an SCR that could just destroy game like that. So you got SS4 Gogeta, Pureless Fusion, okay? I don't know why. He's just, you play him and you can't play other cards. Like, what is this? I mean, he does not do enough to end, like, yes, he can end the game, but a single misplay or your opponent having the juice to not die, and this guy will prevent you from playing the game. And I don't know why you would put that as a, like, no. And you've got SS3 Gotenks, Blazing Fusion, okay? I mean, once again, you have a secret rare where he comes out, he's ultimate, he's double strike. He's lacking barrier, he's lacking deflect. So right now with a set that brought out so many counterplays, he is very vulnerable. And I mean, you negate the skills of all their battle cards. And when he's removed, you get to nuke all of your battle cards and energy, all your opponent's battle cards and energy in rest mode. That's cool, but on the field, he's a 40k double striker who's able to be hit by everything. And yes, he at most he can be dropped for 4, or at least he can drop for 4, but this doesn't scream, it's accessible. Any deck can play this. Any yellow deck can play this, but he doesn't threaten game when he comes down, and his effect is better when he gets killed. And so it's not really proactive. There's no reason to play this when you have cards like Cell Xeno in the game, and that's actually going to become the prevalent problem. If you're a yellow or green deck, none of these cards make more sense than Cell Xeno because the power gap is too strong. You've got Grade 8 Mass Sand, Primal Carnage. This card is really cool. If your leader card is mono green, you can remove this card from your combo area from the game, and you can choose one of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, and KO it. That's awesome. Very good defensively at like stopping cards that are swinging big on the battle end. But he doesn't hit Unisons, which came out in this set. That sucks. But for 5 green, you can play this card from your hand against dual attack and triple strike for the turn. Cool, but it doesn't have barrier, so it's getting smoked. Doesn't even have deflect, so it's still getting smoked by cards in the same set, like, I don't know, God Sealing, after you just paid 5 energy for it. And on top of that, once again, we're at the same dilemma. This is a green card, so why aren't you just playing Xeno Cell? Like, you can't afford it? That's fair. But if you have it, there's no reason not to. That's how vastly different these SCRs are. You've got Shinron Negative Energy Incarnate. This card is basically just a secret rare that was kind of put in like a little at-home kit. And it's good in one deck. It's literally good in one deck, but you're not pulling for this card per se. So I'm not gonna hate on that. You're not pulling for this card, and it's very archetype specific, but it's very strong in the archetype it's in, because in that deck, all you need to do is survive. And this card allows you to survive and tap 6 the next turn and go at it again. So not much to say about that one. Then you got the 3 from the current set that we're gonna get into. And those 3 are Baby Hatch, Sand Destroyer, okay? That card is nutty. It can end the battle phase, and for a blue deck that just needs to get to 5 energy, really, 4 or 5 energy, this is the card you need. This is a very, 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 very good example of a solid secret rare, because it will stay in the game forever. It's always going to be a good defensive option for blue. I can't see them power creeping Baby Hatch yet, because the next step is ending your opponent's entire turn. Like, this card, it doesn't win the game, but it buys you another turn in a deck that needs to ramp up. And I think that this is the sterling example of what a good SCR is. This is viable. It's going to last very, very, very long. I don't ever see this being out-crept. I always see this as an option for blue. And it doesn't just break the game. So, yeah, I think Baby Hatch is done right. Then you got SS4, the Great Destroyer, SS4 Rolly. It can be used in 2 decks right now. One of those decks isn't even a thing. It can be used in Red Gogeta BR and Red Broly BR from the same set. And really, I'm gonna be honest, this card is extra reach in the Broly deck. But the Broly deck wins all the time without the secret rare. So this card is one of those things where it's like, yes, you want to have it, but you could win all your games and never even see this card. So it's hard to pull. Very limited, and honestly not very impactful in my opinion. So in the same set, I think you have 2 cards that are really, really on the opposite sides of the spectrum. And if you thought it could be worse than that, you were correct, because then you got Vegeta Warrior from another dimension. What does this card do? Like, I'm serious. Like, it's a unison that only goes up by 1, needs 4 or more markers to swing, meaning you have to immediately play it for 4. It's a 25k unison, so it's going to be harder for your opponent to stop, like by swinging on it. But by the time you can pay 4 for unison, your opponent can definitely swing for 25. Let's be real about that. And you know, even when you're getting this guy's massively convoluted effect off, you're going to draw 3 cards. He's going to go to a 40k like most SCRs, and he's going to get triple attack for the turn. And your opponent can only activate counter skills 1 more time for the turn. Cool. This guy is not it. This guy is literally not it. He is so hard to use, and there's so many ways this card can go wrong for you. You are paying 4 for him to come out. You have to protect him for a turn. Then you need to pay 4 again. And if they hit you 1 time, a single time, you can't even swing with them. So yeah, no, I don't know what they're thinking about this. But as you can see, the whole point of going through this was to lead into the next video. In the next video, I'm going to talk about set 12's SCRs. I'm also going to talk about how they feel in comparison to the SCRs before. And then I'm also going to talk about where we go with SCRs from here. It's going to be a shorter video because this one had like 28 cards I need to go through, actually 25. But the issue is, I still think that as a company, Bandai is trying to figure out where they want their SCRs, because you don't want to break the game with Cell Xeno and Black Smoke and Apex, but you don't want to make things incredibly weak like some of our SCRs have been, inaccessible and weak. It just kind of deflates the value of your box, because these SRs, they're going all over the place. SPRs became less value ever since, you know, ever since they started becoming guaranteed. But the thing is, the SCRs are kind of what sell cases. You buy a case because you're guaranteed the SCRs for the most part. And if the SCRs aren't hitting, there's no real reason to sit here and buy mass sealed product. So I think Bandai needs to understand where it's going to be able to draw players in while not snapping their formats in half with busted secret rares that feel like you were just robbing your opponent for seeing 1 card. So that is that. I know it's a bit of a longer video, but I felt like I wanted to kind of go through the history of it. And then on the next video, we're going to talk about the current secret rares coming out in 2 weeks. And we're going to talk about how they match up to everything. And then I'm going to speak about where I think Bandai could tighten up and where they could go from here. So thank you guys if you watched all the way through that. I hope you guys enjoyed it, the trip down memory lane, and I will talk to you guys the next time you decide to join Universe X. Thanks, and I'll see you later.